But things like, same-sex marriage and abortion and gun control and, even stem cell research, I've seen people starting to get out on that one, and things like that are going to be major hot-button issues. They are going to play a major role whether you like it or not. And the difference between now and 1970, we touched on a few of those issues, but we could touch on them relatively quietly then and somewhat rationally. You can't do that now because those special interests, and they're not the only ones. I mean, there are others, are so much more organized now, so much more visible, so much better financed, and so much louder. I just think there's no way that you're not going to have a huge overkill, if you will, from those kinds of issues. So that's one difference, I think, between then and now. One other thing I would like to say about the current stalemate in Springfield, which I think is absolutely an embarrassment. It's abominable, and it's coming 99% from members of my own party, from the leaders of my own party, and I'm mad at all of them, as a matter of fact. But I don't think anything you do in the Constitution is going to change what I think that is mostly about, which is a battle of personalities, a battle of egos, a battle of power, and not a battle of constitutionalism. And I'm not sure that if we, had rewritten the Constitution and had done all kinds of other interesting things with it, that if you had the same folks lined up with the same agendas, that you wouldn't have the same problem. So I don't think, there's no question, by the way, I fully agree, by the way, that the public attitude toward that impasse in Springfield right now could well have an impact on the vote in November 2008. I think that's, right now I think you have to assume it will have an impact. I don't know how heavy it will be, but it will be there, with people saying, if it's broke, let's fix it, and the only way to fix it is to have a constitutional convention and, rewrite the whole thing. I think that will be a factor. But I would just put out a plea. Please, don't assume that rewriting the Constitution, or even rewriting just parts of it, would put an end to the kind of mess that you see going on in Springfield right now.
Lieutenant?
Well, I would say, in response to that, what has happened is members of the legislature who are in leadership positions have now, in recent years, in both the House and Senate, decided that certain bills won't even be voted on or addressed. And I think that is an imperfection or flaw of our current democracy in Illinois. And there are other states where voters and members of the legislature have a right to a roll call vote. And I think that would certainly improve our democracy. I think the power of the leaders, say Senator Jones now, controls the agenda on whether or not we're going to vote on ending pay to play. He also has a leadership committee in the Senate that gives out campaign donations to the various candidates for the Senate. Well, I'm not sure that's healthy for a democracy. If you can't do something by statute dealing with these leadership committees, maybe you need a constitutional amendment. Perhaps you need, if not term limits for the members of the legislature, term limits for the Speaker or for the President of the Senate. Indeed, in the country of Israel, the head of their parliament has to run and be ratified by the voters and approved by the voters, not just the members of the Parliament elect the leader of that body, but or the Knesset in that case, but the voters get sort of a way to decide whether or not that person is the right one to be the leader of such an important body of government. And so I think that you can improve the process of democracy that we currently have in Illinois, that, as John has outlined, is broken down in a lot of areas. It simply is not addressing issues. Senator Meeks had a proposal. I don't agree with every part of that proposal, but he was told by Senator Jones this year with respect to school financing, we're not going to debate that. We're not going to talk about that. That's off limits. Senator Jones said, we're not going to entertain any of the override votes that the House has approved. We're just not going to do that because I say so. Well, that's unhealthy. And I think there is a lot of concern in Illinois that the notion of democracy that we respect, that we are the land of Lincoln, government of the people, democracy has got some serious flaws in our state, and only the people, via constitutional convention, which in the history of America has been the tool used by the voters to step in and repair imperfections and flaws in democracy. If you look at the history of our country, especially even before the Declaration of Independence, the various colonies would have, after we became independent, their own constitutional convention to define what democracy really was going to be. And I think that has been something that's been close to the heart of American voters ever since.
Well, Nancy, I think, wanted to respond real quickly, and then you can.
Did you want to respond before I?
Well, okay. Let me just, number one, you're not going to get a constitution that tries to write the rules of operation of the House and Senate. It simply is not going to happen, and you don't want it to happen, really. Secondly, when I was in the Senate, the then president of the Senate, most of the time I was there, and I disagreed, although we're of the same party, we disagreed on a lot of things. But one thing was that he never, ever denied us a vote on something. He might work his tail off to defeat us, but he would not deny us a vote. That is the way it should be, and I think Senator Jones is absolutely wrong in what he is doing right at the moment. But there is one way to address that, and that is for the individual members to get up and make a motion and insist on a roll call anyway, and that's what I want them to do. We would have done that back 20 years ago, and we did it a couple of times when we were being stymied. That is democracy in action, and you don't need a constitutional convention to say that, to write rules into the Constitution in order for elected legislators to be able to have enough gumption to take the kind of position they ought to take, which is what they ought to do right now.